So I wanted to do a quick video on The Last Jedi. There's a ton of, uh, just a lot of hate going around for the movie, and I totally get it. A lot of people are really disappointed in some of the themes in the movie and how they treated Luke. But what I wanted to do was kind of explain why the Jedi needed to die and why this was necessary for the whole franchise. Okay, so I really liked Last Jedi. It's not perfect. There's a lot of characters and subplots that aren't really great, and there's certain things about it that could definitely be improved. But I think the real reason people are so pissed about it isn't these little subplots. It's because it basically changes our hero worship and our understanding of these characters, right? We have Luke and these other characters up on this pedestal. So to see them, sort of changed, and to see the whole mythos, being affected, it people taking it very personally. All right. So, it's not like I really need to defend Last Jedi because it's going to make billions of dollars. But I'm seeing a lot of people really railing, going against this movie. A lot of people are super pissed, and a lot of longtime fans. So the thing is, I understand where they're coming from. I understand why people are pissed, but I also understand why this movie has a lot of greatness in it. So I just wanted to explain that. Um, See, I grew up watching Star Wars, like probably most other people, and it's one of the most important pieces of pop culture that's out there. So people take it very, very personally if you're going to change it or do anything like that. So I mean, I've even watched the prequels tons of times. I've watched every Star Wars movie so many times, um, but you know we're not going to be able to capture that iconic Luke confronting his father. That's almost like this very classic, almost like a Freudian type of mythology that was very important for that time. But the new movies aren't going to be able to just recapture that by doing the same thing. All right. So if you look at the original trilogy, it's got this classic setup, right? It needs to be there because it's Luke growing up, confronting his father. But then when you come to the Force Awakens, there's no real need, and that's honestly one of the problems of the whole new trilogy. There's no real need for these new movies to exist, right? Think about it. Luke confronted his father, grew up, whatever. They took down the Empire. So then in The Force Awakens, we cut to 30 years later, and there's still a rebellion, and there's still this evil empire that people need to fight. That seems pointless. That it's like, why would this exist? Doesn't that basically make the whole rest of the original trilogy kind of pointless? Their hero moments didn't actually accomplish anything if they're still fighting, so it felt very repetitive. So the thing about The Force Awakens is it was a nice remix of the old trilogy, the fun characters, the pacing, and the sense of adventure, right? So that was exactly what it needed to be, was this exciting return back to Star Wars. The problem is that deep down we knew all the story beats, and it was too familiar to us, right? And if you really think about it, there's no real point of this movie existing. Why would anyone want to see there being no point to the original trilogy if they're doing the same things? And then basically having the same types of characters go through the same motions. I mean, it's obvious with the finding the droid on a desert planet, and leaving home, and that sort of thing, and joining the rebellion, and going on these, seeing crazy alien bars and all that stuff. So it's the same kind of stuff, and that's what people wanted. They wanted a return to form because they didn't want to just think of the prequels. You know, we needed to kind of get like that out of our heads and get back to the original type of vibe. So as far as a vibe, you know, Force Awakens is great. It captures a lot of that kind of fun charm. Everyone's like super charming, but deep down we know there's no real point to it, right? And that's one of the problems with the new trilogy. So then Last Jedi comes, and that's why Last Jedi is so important, because it's the first time really that we're seeing an actual new story, an actual continuation of this universe. So really think about it, okay? You know, Last Jedi is getting all this hype and excitement. If it was just Luke training Rey, or Luke, you know, getting his lightsaber and just being like Obi-Wan and going with Rey and fighting the Empire or First Order, that, you know, that's what we all wanted in a way. It's all what we were expecting. We wanted to see Luke be a badass and just go in there. I mean, that's what I wanted too. We wanted to see him just go into the First Order and just start wrecking everybody. But the problem is that what would be the point of that, right? Like, as much as that sounds exciting, Luke already did that, and it was called The Return of the Jedi. He already proved that he was a badass that could take down an empire. So him just coming out of retirement to do it again, you know, that would be so. I mean, it's not that it would be dumb, but it would just be like really pointless. Why would we want to watch? It would just be better special effects versions of Return of the Jedi, except not as interesting and not as emotionally important to the characters, because you know, Luke was actually fighting his father, and et cetera, et cetera. So would we just want to watch a kind of a stupid rehash of Return of the Jedi with better special effects, or a rehash of Empire Strikes Back? So, you know, there was a real worry that Last Jedi was going to be that. And I kind of want to explain why it was necessary, not only in that Star Wars universe, but to the whole audience too. Right, so think about the audience. The audience has been growing up with these movies. It's like a 40-year-old, you know, franchise at this point. I don't know if franchise is the right word, but so it's been going on for decades, right? We know the story beats. We know there's good guys, bad guys. It's so simple. It's almost too simple for modern times, though, because it's just, hey, these are the good guys, and you know they're the scrappy rebels, and they're gonna fight this really evil empire. Perfect for A New Hope. Perfect for the original trilogy. We don't really even need to know the details. If anything, the prequels went into too much detail. What we need to know is, where is this really going, and what's going to happen with the story. And when you really think about it, there's a lot of toxic parts of the fan base too. Like, let's be honest, there's these really angry fanboys that, you know, just will hate pretty much anything in Star Wars. Like, you know, they're fans of Star Wars, but they're the ones that they're not even enjoying it anymore, right? Like, let's be like completely honest. They're hating the things that they're passionate about, and it's just like so much fan speculation and obsession, and it's like very toxic, where it's like, well, they don't even look at these movies as characters anymore. Okay, they really don't. They look at them as like stats, where it's just, well, this person has this midichlorian count, and this person has this force skill, and you know, this person's related to this person, so that means that they could technically fight this person. They're not even really people anymore. They're just like video game characters, where it's like, hey, if you level up enough in the force, then you might be able to take on this guy. But you'd have to have some sort of relation to somebody, or have some sort of like secret backstory to explain why, you know. And it's like bogging everything down with, why does everything need to have some elaborate backstory? It's getting to the point. Well, it got to the point where it was just ridiculous. You know, Lightsabers have their own backstories, and Rey's parents have this, must have some sort of secret mystery about it. And Snoke must be the super mysterious guy. Where did he come from? So I get it. Um, a lot of the mysteries were built up in Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams, he likes to do the whole mystery box, and he likes to build that sense of mystique. But ultimately, what answers would have even satisfied us, right? That Rey is secretly related to like Obi-Wan, or she's secretly a Skywalker. That would have been so ridiculous. But even okay, so let's say that she even was related to Skywalker. Then it's just a story of just one family, out of this entire universe. All these planets, all these different alien races, empires rising and falling. We're just going to follow one family around, and no one's allowed to do anything of any importance unless they happen to be related to some other character. I mean, who were Obi-Wan's parents? Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Who were Anakin's parents? Apparently, he was just made by the Force. Would have made you happy if Rey was magically created by the Force just to fill some sort of plot need to have someone be able to take down another character because they're related. So that person's obviously more important. The whole point of The Last Jedi is to finally break away from these ridiculous fan theories and obsessions and just let us enjoy the actual movie. Get away from all these, even subconsciously, we knew the structure that they were going in with, oh, this person has to do this and whatever. It's going to be good guys versus bad guys. And, this person's got to level up in the Force and then do this thing. And it's like the fact that we already know these things. We've been so, we've absorbed it over all these decades that it just would have been boring. And frankly, it has been getting boring. Okay, let's be honest. Force Awakens was exciting and it was fun, but it was also kind of boring because it's like nothing new. It's like, oh, we're going through the same motions. Like, even if it's a fun ride, it's like, okay, you're kind of doing the same thing, to the point of copying the Death Star and everything else. Like, you're literally just doing beat for beat the stuff that we like. So it's just a greatest hits album. It's a greatest hits album done by a cover band, basically, and that's not that interesting. Like, let's really be honest. So if you think about it, the Jedi and the Sith, they've been fighting for thousands of years in this universe. And how long, like, that's not even that interesting. How long do we want to see the same shit over and over? Okay, well, the Sith are really secretive and they're going to come up with another bad guy. He's even got more powers. So we're going to have another Jedi who does the same thing. So it's like, okay, it's like the characters become so one-dimensional to the point where these fanboys are projecting, and they just want to look at their stats and is their fucking midichlorian count going to be enough to take over this person? Is their backstory important enough? Are they related to somebody powerful enough to fight this other person? So it's like weighing down the story with all this speculation bullshit, and it's not even fun anymore, right? It's not even fun. So by getting rid of these hero myths and these concepts of, people have to be related or they have to have some sort of secret backstory, Last Jedi, whether you like it or not, basically just trashes all that stuff. So a lot of people are really offended, and I get it, but really think about how important it was needed. Okay, let's be honest, it was needed. Okay, it's trashing all these, hey, your fan theories don't matter, your obsessions about these little minutia about backstories don't matter, who people's parents are. Guess what? That doesn't matter to you or me or the vast majority of people going to work every day. Why does it matter how powerful your parents are? Like, you're only as strong as they are. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about it. It's like it's limiting these stories. Luke was great in A New Hope because it's like the sense of adventure, the fact that he came from nowhere. And The Last Jedi is a return to that concept where, hey, it's not just these elites ruling the galaxy. It's not this special magical bloodline. It's not just this dynasty. It is everybody. Everybody's included now, and that sense of wonder, like anybody can kind of go off and go on an adventure and have an impact. And the whole point of Last Jedi is not only that people fail and that it's just normal people making mistakes, because pretty much everybody fails in some sense in Last Jedi, but it's just that it's like normal people. And the broom kid or whatever else, the broom kid at the end is just sort of like, hey, get back to that sense of wonder. We're telling stories in a sci-fi weird fantasy world where crazy shit can happen, and we're supposed to experience imagination and exploration, not just see the same things over and over, because it's really this tight little box. If you think about Star Wars, people can think of it as like this great big universe, but really in their, what we know subconsciously, like deep down, it's actually a very tight box. It's just it's good guys, bad guys, Sith and Jedi, and it's very simplistic. And there's lightsabers and TIE fighters and X-wings, and if a movie doesn't have all of those things, it's like, what's the point of it? But now we can break beyond that stuff. It doesn't have to be so simplistic. It doesn't have to tie into even what we know about the expanded universe and the Sith and Jedi fighting for thousands of years. Don't you want to see something new? Like, now we can actually see something that legitimately has never happened before. When Kylo Ren killed Snoke, that was the first time in a very, very long time, especially in a Star Wars movie, where I was legitimately surprised. And I was like, where are they actually going to go with this? This is actually very interesting now. Instead of Kylo Ren and Rey fighting in a throne room and basically, doing some sort of recreation of Return of the Jedi, now we get to see, okay, what happens after that? Okay, so Kylo Ren gets to, sneakily kill Snoke, and wow, what's going to happen? Are they going to team up? Kylo Ren has a good chance of becoming good, but Rey also has a really good chance of becoming evil, but they're not necessarily pure good or pure evil. They have very understandable, just relatable human flaws. That's the thing. A lot of people in Last Jedi are very flawed and relatable, so they're not like this mythic archetype structure that we're used to, right? Original trilogy is archetypes and hero's journey and this myth, right? And when we put these hero idols up in our minds, and we want to project ourselves onto them and enjoy their perfection, like that Luke is going to be this great Jedi Master, and everything he does is going to be badass forever, which is great. Of course that's great, and that can still be in your mind. But let's be honest, that doesn't make for a very interesting person. If they're just perfect and amazing at everything, that would have been, a Mary Sue type character. If all we were doing was watching Luke go around wrecking stuff. What we really needed was a new type of character, ones that have dimensions to them, and even Luke, bring him down to the human level where he had failure and he's, got disappointment. If he was just like this awesome Jedi Master teacher, then, of course we would have loved it. But the fact that he's not, the fact that he's known disappointment and mistakes and regrets in his life, that makes him way more interesting, if you really think about it, than being like the perfect hero boy from the original trilogy, as awesome as he was. And of course, the original trilogy still exists, but this is after that, and these are new characters. So you can't just watch Luke going around wrecking stuff with a lightsaber for the next trilogy, because he already did that. It'd just be too repetitive. These are exploring like new themes like people not being just good or bad, or the fact that the dark side has other things to offer people. things that people have been hiding from themselves. The fact that it's not just plot armor protecting somebody, right? Just because Snoke is this badass Force user, he's not immune to everything. He can be tricked and he can be killed, right? So all of a sudden, it drops a lot of things. It's basically doing what George R. R. Martin did for with his fantasy with Game of Thrones. He basically was commenting on the Lord of the Rings, where everyone's perfect and everyone is good and they're able to take down things that are pure evil. George R. R. Martin with Game of Thrones was basically saying, hey, people are way more complex and heroes die all the time, and the people that you build up in your mind can get slaughtered, and people who are doing the slaughtering can also have good aspects to them and change their minds and have complex, emotions and different dimensions of their personalities. That's essentially what this is attempting to do. It's basically just burning down, a lot like the little Last Jedi tree. It's burning down a lot of the foundation of the original mythos or surrounding the Jedi, and this tradition of constantly doing the same thing. And and I can see why a lot of people would be very, very upset about it. They're trashing Luke, they're trashing their concept of the Force, they're trashing our understanding of this universe. But that is necessary to tell new stories, because when I left the theater for Last Jedi, I honestly did not know what was going to happen now. And isn't that a good feeling? Think about the last time you really had that feeling in a Star Wars movie, right? I mean, Empire was one of those movies. I mean, obviously I was too young to see it in theaters, but Empire Strikes Back is one of those movies where you don't really know what's going to happen. And there's like a sense of mystery to everything, and things are kind of weird, and Yoda's kind of goofy and strange, and but there's hidden like wisdoms and things about it where it's like, oh, this is way more interesting. It's going to take me a little bit. It's going to take me some time and some rewatches to really get what this movie's trying to say. But it's pretty much since then, every movie's been pretty predictable. You've got Return of the Jedi, awesome, but a lot of rehashes and a lot of stuff where it's basically just kind of tying up the threads. But characters didn't even really know what to do a lot of times because it was mostly about Luke. Then you get into the prequels where obviously that is predictable because that's just following structure to lead up to it. And then you've got like Rogue One, where that is basically leading up to something, and that was always doomed to fail, so that's kind of predictable and not particularly interesting. And even Force Awakens, there were some mysteries like, which one is Finn or Rey going to be the Force user? Like, who knows what's going to happen? But mainly it was, okay, we get it. There's a Vader type, there's an Emperor type, and they're just remaking the best parts of what we remember of Star Wars, right? They just want to bring us back to it. So that's why Last Jedi was important. I mean, I've seen a lot of people just trashing and saying, "Oh, you fucked up Snoke. You fucked up Rey's parents. Like, now we don't know who Snoke is." Well, who cares? We didn't know who the Emperor was, and we still, even with the prequels, we still don't really know what he was up to, And how much stuff do you need to know about him? You need to know what he was like, when he was a teenager or whatever. Like, that stuff isn't part of a story. That's just all this extraneous backstory you're loading on top of these films, and it's ruining the enjoyment of spontaneity and just like real exploration into new, wacky sci-fi fantasy type stuff. And that's why the Last Jedi is like actually really important, not only in the Star Wars universe, but it's almost like a meta commentary on the audience and the audience expectations of, well, this has got to be related to this, and this has to have this elaborate backstory, and it's like, why? Don't you want to be surprised? I was surprised when Snoke died. I was surprised when Rey and Kylo Ren joined forces to fight the Praetorian Guard. I did not see that coming. That was crazy. That was exciting, and that was fun to watch. I mean, to see the same stuff that you're expecting. I know it's a safe, comforting place, and that's why they made Force Awakens. But that's not interesting, and that's not really in the spirit of Star Wars. Star Wars should be about adventure and new areas to explore. So, the fact that, and that's what the broom boy at the end, sort of exemplifies. This is a new era. It's open to everybody. It's not just these dynasties and elites running the galaxy. It's the other 99% of people, right? It's very, there's some political stuff in there, that need to stand up for themselves, that, aren't always sure what to do, and, whose previous generation failed them in many ways. And now it's up to them to decide what to do with themselves. So really think about that. And even now I'm seeing all these theories where, oh, well, Broom Boy might be in the next movie or the next trilogy, and it'll fast forward and Rey will be training the Broom Boy. And it's like you guys are completely missing the point. It's driving me crazy. And then, Kylo Ren was lying about Rey's parents. He's evil. Of course he's going to lie to her. And I bet it's actually, she's related to Kenobi or something. And it's like, what are you, it's like you're missing the theme of the whole movie. And, and that's that it doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. You aren't limited to how powerful your mom or dad is and anything. Are you? Right? And a lot of times your parents or the previous generation or the institutions have let you down, and you have some say in what goes on in the universe. And that's ultimately what Star Wars is about, because when Luke went on to go from a farm boy to becoming hero of the rebellion, he started off as just a random kid, and that is the hero's journey. A person coming from nothing, being able to say something about the world, stand up for themselves, and make a difference in that, in their own story. And instead of, oh, well, you're only important if you're related to this person, or you have this elaborate thing, that needed to get rid of. Okay, we need to get rid of it in Star Wars, and we need to get rid of it in the toxic fanboy community, where it's just like, well, explain this. A fantasy movie doesn't always need to have these detailed explanations for everything. It's about themes and people and growing as a person, as well as the excitement of people actually deciding what's going to happen and taking a stand. That's really what these movies are about. And I know there's differing opinions. Some people think that the Star Wars movies are really about heroism, and nobody's really a hero in Last Jedi, because they all sort of failed, and they never really sacrificed themselves, and then they kind of hid away. And I totally get that. But just remember, this is a way to bring Star Wars back down to that human level, to where it's actually relatable. Okay, so people who have failures and disappointments and regrets can actually relate, like, a normal human can relate to these characters, instead of them just being these perfect, that's sort of boring anyway, these sort of perfect good or evil characters, right? We did that already. It was called the original trilogy. We had the perfect Vader, and we had the perfect hero in Luke facing him. But now we've already told that story, so don't expect the same thing, and let's move on to, hey, things are a little more gray now, right? Us as a society, we realize that things aren't just pure good and pure evil. We realize that institutions and governments have been failing us and disappointing us, and that we still have a say in what's going on, and it's not just through royalty or a relation. um, and it's not limited to just these very specific people that can actually change the universe. It's up to anybody who's willing to get up, and it's not just this one Skywalker family. It can literally just be somebody from nothing, and that is a very very different message than what people are used to. But I think it's a really necessary kind of story to tell in 2017, um, coming on to 2018, where a lot of people are disappointed in the way things are going, and are just looking for other people to save them from it. This is more a story about normal people, and I'm hoping that as it continues in episode 9 about how normal people can make a difference, and that's really what the first Star Wars is about. Okay, Last Jedi took a lot of those influences of samurai movies and World War II movies, and these different concepts, just different sort of sci-fi fantasy concepts. And from the root, instead of just mimicking Star Wars, it took those inspirations and it made something that is shockingly changing things, and a bit different than what we're used to. Quite a bit different. Okay, there's things that I wanted to see Luke kick ass too, and I would argue that he did, though, by the end of the Last Jedi. But there's a lot of things that we were expecting, and we should want to be surprised. We should want to see new stories. Otherwise, what is the point? So I just wanted to not necessarily defend Last Jedi. It's going to make billions of dollars, but I'm seeing a lot of hate, and I think people are judging it too quickly, and they're not catching the themes that are there, because they're just so obsessed with these backstory theories, and things don't really matter to the actual story that they're trying to tell. If you want to see the same story, just watch the old movies. But these are new stories, and they need to have new ideas to explore. Otherwise, we're just going to be going around with the same stuff with the Sith and Jedi fighting each other for thousands of years, and that has been done in so many different ways, so many different mediums. It's time for something new, and this was a painful process of sort of burning down the house so that you can sort of build a new one. And anyway, that's my take on it.